Now we'll go to question time. Senator Scarr.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Senator Wong. Minister, in relation to the settlement of a compensation claim on 13 December 2022, why didn't the Commonwealth or its legal representatives seek any evidence from former ministers or their staff about the matters cited in the claim?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Scarr for the question. The advice I have is that the claim in question was managed consistently with the Commonwealth's obligation under the Legal Services Direction, and the Commonwealth's settled in accordance with legal principle and practice. In relation to the legal representation point of Senator Cash and Senator Reynolds, that was managed by the Commonwealth consistently with the Parliamentary Business Resources Regulations. Obviously, Senators Cash and Reynolds were under no obligation to seek this assistance from the government. I have some further information which goes to the Legal Services Direction 2017, which was issued by the Attorney-General under the Judiciary Act, which sets out binding rules for Commonwealth legal work. The claim in question was managed in accordance with those principles.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Scarr, first supplementary.
Thank you, Senator Wong, for that answer. In terms of a follow-up question, can the minister confirm to the chamber that the claim was settled at the very first mediation, which lasted just a single day? And also, can the minister confirm that no aspect of this claim ever came before a hearing of a court?
Minister Wong.
As I understand it, the matter was obviously settled, and the intrinsic nature of settlements is the fact that they often occur prior to the matter going to any court or other tribunal. I don't have personal knowledge, nor does the advice in front of me indicate how long those discussions were engaged in. I would make the point that these are matters which are settled in accordance with legal principle and practice, and I'm advised that the parties agreed that the terms of the settlement are confidential.
Senator Scarr, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. I would note that in many cases, and the opposition leader has legal experience as I do, that many claims are settled after court hearings are initiated, and sometimes mediations even occur on the steps of the court. Minister, can you confirm that the Commonwealth agreed to settle the matter without putting any of the claims made to the people involved?
Minister Wong.
First, in relation to the comments about when settlements occur, it is a very long time since I was a lawyer, but from the dim, dark recesses of my memory, I recall that settlements could occur at many stages in the process. Sometimes, as you know, before proceedings were issued, sometimes shortly after proceedings were issued, and sometimes, as you identify, after proceedings had commenced, including hearings. The response I would make to what you've put to me is that the advice I have is that this matter was settled in accordance with legal principle and practice, informed by external legal advice, and model litigant obligations were upheld.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Sheldon.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. After a year in office, the number of Australians in work remains at record highs under the Albanese Labor government. For the first time ever, the number of employed people in Australia has reached 14 million. That's despite a slowing global economy. Can the Minister provide the Senate with an update on the latest labour force data released just yesterday by the ABS, and tell us what it says about the performance of the Australian economy under the Albanese Labor government?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Sheldon, for that question. And Senator Sheldon, like many Labor senators, those on this side have spent a great deal of their working life advocating for working people and for ensuring that working Australians have access to secure, well-paid jobs. So I'm pleased to take the question from Senator Sheldon, and he's right. Yesterday's ABS labour force figures were very good news for Australians, for Australian families and for those wanting to enter the workforce, revealing that the number of employed Australians has reached 14 million. 14 million Australians in work. That is a record-breaking figure, accompanied by a reduction in the unemployment rate down to 3.6%. That is an achievement for the Australian people. It is an achievement for the Australian economy, and it reflects the resilience of the economy that is such a priority for the Albanese Labor government, a government which supports job creation. Since coming into this office, we have seen 465,000 jobs created under the Albanese government. And importantly, what we are committed to on this side is not a deliberate policy of deliberate low-wage policy. We are committed to delivering secure and well-paid jobs. We've also prioritised gender equity in the workplace, and the figures see more women in full-time employment than ever before. The results we've witnessed in the labour force aren't a coincidence. They are influenced by our government's commitment to empowering workers and ensuring their rights and protections, including the policies to address gender pay inequity, paid family domestic violence leave, a pay increase for aged care workers and affordable early childhood education. And as you know, we are also actively working on further reforms to safeguard the rights of working people.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Albanese Labor government is clearly taking action to help all Australians have access to secure and well-paid jobs. Can the minister please explain to the Senate how do the government's policies contribute to continued resilience in the labour market and the Australian economy more broadly?
Minister.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Senator Sheldon is right to ask about resilience, because we know that we have challenges ahead as a consequence of higher interest rates, interest in the global economy. We see markets and economies around the world managing an entry into recession, Europe, New Zealand, for example. And we know we have to continue to build on our successes, and we have to lay the foundations for more secure and well-paid jobs in the future. That's why the government is investing in key sectors to stimulate jobs growth and to drive the economic prosperity of the nation. That's why we are investing in renewable energy, in infrastructure, in advanced manufacturing. That's why we'll continue to drive the development of innovative industries and technologies, access to education and skills training programs to equip Australian workers today with the necessary tools to thrive in an evolving job market in the future.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
Good, thank you, President. Now, unlike the Liberals and Nationals, the Albanese government has taken action to get wages moving. This Labor government is working to create a more prosperous future for all. That includes fairer wages and better working protections. Can the minister highlight the key differences between the Albanese government's approach and the coalition opposite?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Wong.
Well, I think Australians know, and we hear from the interjections, how those opposite react to the news of more jobs and more well-paid jobs. And the government that seeks to ensure jobs are more secure and more well-paid, because what we remember is those opposite believe that low wages are a deliberate design feature. Deliberate design feature. What that shows is what they...
Order. I'm waiting for order. Minister Wong. Minister Wong.
Low wages are a deliberate design feature of our economy. That's what those opposite truly believe in their heart of hearts. Well, we on this side know that what we have to do at a time where there are global challenges, There are global challenges. There are challenges in economies around the world. We know the way ahead does present some choppy waters for Australia, is to ensure we focus on how we create the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow, and we ensure, as far as government can, they are well paid and that they are secure.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Payne.
Thank you, Mr President. I ask the Minister for Finance.
You need to rephrase that. I'm not Mr President.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Thank you, Madam President. Years of habit, unfortunately for me. I refer the Minister to her statement to the Senate on Tuesday and subsequent answers in multiple question times. How is it a breach of confidentiality, as the Minister has repeatedly claimed, to confirm whether or not the Minister received an advance copy of a media broadcast which has subsequently been made public? I ask the Minister, did she or did she not receive any advance copy of content from the project episode that was broadcast on Monday, the 15th of February 2021?
Thank you, Senator Payne. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Payne for the question, and I'm going to refer back to my statement and the answers I've given in numerous answers to questions being asked of me today. When somebody comes to me with information and asks that it be kept confidential, I intend to keep that confidentiality, and I do that not just in this situation, but I've done it in hundreds of situations before that, and indeed I have no doubt I'll be doing it again. And it's for the ones that are going to come forward that I don't know about yet that I will keep that confidentiality. They need to know that if they tell me something, that it's not going to be aired on the floor of this parliament.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payne, first supplementary.
The Minister has told the Senate she did absolutely nothing with information provided to her in advance of the project broadcast of 15th of February 2021. Yet the Minister has obfuscated on the question of whether or not she provided feedback in advance of that broadcast, without revealing the content of communications, but so as to verify the veracity of that claim of doing absolutely nothing. Did she or did she not provide any feedback in response to the information provided to her?
Thank you, Senator Payne. Minister Gallagher.
Well, I'll refer Senator Payne to the answers I've given already on this. Well, I'm keeping, I did nothing with the information because I was asked to keep the information confidential. I did that. I know it's hard for you to understand that someone, given the nature of the information given to me, would actually do that, but that is what I did. I don't intend to go into any further detail about the...
Order.
Well, I refer you to my statement. I'm not going to go into further detail. I've given the two issues that were raised from a parliamentary point of view that I needed to address and have addressed were about whether or not I had misled the Senate, which I maintain I didn't, and on the second point, whether I had a role in relation to the settlement of the compensation claim, of which I didn't. And I don't intend to go any further. The time for answering
has expired. Senator Payne, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Minister has a duty to be accountable to this chamber. Yet the Minister has continually misused claims of confidentiality in response to questions about a very public media broadcast, which the Minister asked hundreds of questions about herself. Is the Minister hiding behind the excuse of confidentiality because giving a direct answer would confirm that the Minister misled the Senate when she said no one had any knowledge, and misled the Senate again when she said that she did absolutely nothing with the information?
Thank you, Senator Payne. Minister Gallagher.
Well, the answer to that is no, and I have been accountable to this Senate. I have stood here every day answering questions that related to something that happened in the previous parliament, a very distressing situation for everyone, as we all know.
Order.
Well, Senator Henderson, I believe Ms Higgins. Now, if whatever happened, it has been distressing for a lot of people in this building, as has this week. But the answer to your question is no, and I have been accountable to the Senate on both of those points that I believe needed addressing, which was around the nature of whether I'd misled and also a role in the compensation payment. I have been totally accountable to this Senate.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Minister Wong. Earlier this month, global temperatures crept 1.5 degrees above historic averages for the first time in human history. Current coal, oil and gas production continuing in operation will permanently blow the safe 1.5 degree limit. We have to wind down production, not expand it, if we're going to have any fighting chance of stopping a climate breakdown. Is the government still going to proceed with its $1.9 billion taxpayer subsidy for developing Middle Arm, now that Tamboran have confirmed that it will support their plans to build Australia's biggest ever gas export hub there?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
I will, in relation to the specific project of Middle Arm, I will get perhaps a little more sophisticated an answer than I'm urged to by those opposite, but I will try and get a little more information on that, Senator Waters. On the broader, on the broader proposition, which the senator is putting, I understand that the Greens party has a view that the way to deal with climate change in an international global economy is for Australia to shut down its gas exports and to shut down its gas industry. We don't agree. We believe that, well, the task we have been set with, and we wish it were not after so many years of inaction on the other side, is to transition what is a very resource-intensive economy on a pathway to net zero by 2050. And that is not the imperative of that is not only climate, the imperative of that is also jobs. If the majority of the global economy is moving to a net zero by 2050 target, which it is, I think it's 84% of global GDP has made that commitment, then we have to be able to compete in that world. So I outlined in some of my first government question, the question from Senator Sheldon, and as have others, the many investments the government is making in hydrogen, in renewable energy, in the transition of the economy that I have described. We don't take the view that you take, that the way to deal with this is just to make sure that we don't that we shut down some of those industries overnight. So we have a fundamental difference of policy about how to deal with this.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Overnight, the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, again called for an end to the use of coal, oil and gas and shamed global fossil fuel companies who are spending 4 cents on clean energy or carbon capture for every dollar that they're spending on new oil and gas expansion. Why is the government giving these tax-avoiding big polluters billions every year in taxpayer-funded subsidies instead of redirecting those billions into stopping the climate crisis?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, first, I think anybody who looks at the history of this over the last 10 years, and certainly the history of when we were last in government, any fair-minded person would recognise the commitment that the Australian Labor Party and Labor governments have had to action on climate change. Despite the climate wars, we spent many years on that side of the chamber continuing to argue a position in the face of a climate policy or an energy policy run by Barnaby Joyce and the National Party. And the fact that the Liberal Party took that path, I think, has been to the detriment of the country. I refer back to my previous answer, Senator Waters. I don't accept many of the assertions in your question. In relation to, no, I don't, not in relation to how you're characterising certain matters, but we do believe.
Minister, the time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Given that the government insists on keeping those fossil fuel subsidies and on bankrolling the biggest gas terminal in Australia's history, when you go to the next Blue Pacific Foreign Ministers meeting, what will you say to Vanuatu's climate minister and other Pacific leaders who've told Australia to stop investing in fossil fuel projects?
Minister Wong.
Well, I have in my first year as Foreign Minister visited every member of the Pacific Islands Forum, some of them more than once, and I say the same thing. I talk about first that, unlike some of our predecessors, we hear and understand that climate change is their #1 national security and economic issue. I talk to them about the fact that not only has a government but a parliament been elected that wants to take action on climate change, and I talk to them about our need to transition, that we recognise that we have had a great benefit from the resources that Australia has, but we also understand that where we want to be by 2050 will require a change in our economy a change in our economy at a scale that hasn't been seen probably since the Industrial Revolution. And I'm clear with them about what our policies are and our ambition and our intent and our commitment to act.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Pratt.
My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. As we know, gender inequality remains a significant issue for women in Australia, with women still on average being paid less, retiring with less and more likely to experience domestic, family and sexual violence, as well as harassment and sexual violence in our workplaces. The Albanese government is committed, as we know, to ensuring gender equality and making life better for women in Australia. We've seen it be a priority across everything this government does from the beginning of its term, after a decade in which Australia went backwards on gender equality. So, Minister, after a year of genuinely listening to women and taking real action, can the Minister for Women update the Senate on how the Albanese government is improving the lives of women?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Pratt for the question and congratulate her on her marriage last weekend. And so good of you to be back here and not on a honeymoon. Since day one, when we came to government as Australia's first majority female federal government, we've taken action to improve women's lives. After a decade of falling behind, we recognise the need for immediate action and investment, and we haven't wasted a day. In our first year, we have made historic investments in women and women's equality. We have supported women's economic equality through our investments in cheaper childcare to give families more choice over childcare arrangements and support women's workforce participation. Families will benefit from this reform from the 1st of July. We're modernising and expanding paid parental leave with the changes to simplify the scheme and making it more flexible and easier to access starting from the 1st of July. We've supported pay increases in industries overwhelmingly dominated by women, including in aged care, with this pay rise also coming into effect from the 1st of July. We've supported single parents with $1.9 billion to increase the eligibility for parenting payment single, the majority of whom are women, until their youngest dependent child turns 14 years old. We took action to end the Punitive Parents Next program and are developing a better way to support vulnerable parents. We've made record investments in women's safety, with women now accessing 10 days paid domestic, family and violence leave. We've invested $2.3 billion in funding for women's safety across our two budgets in preventing violence against women and children. We're implementing all recommendations of the Respect at Work report, including by legislating a positive duty, and we have worked across this parliament to implement the recommendations of the Set the Standard report to make this place a safer place for women in the future.
Thank you, Senator Gallagher. Senator Pratt for supplementary.
It's clear the Albanese government has not wasted a day. Indeed, the job figures released yesterday reveal that 465,000 new jobs were created in the first 12 months of the Albanese government, the most jobs created under a new Australian government on record. Can the Minister for Women update the Senate on how the Albanese government is increasing women's workforce participation?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank you, Senator Pratt. Yesterday's employment data demonstrates that a deliberate focus on barriers to workforce participation does make a difference. More women than ever are now in full-time work. Women's workforce participation is at a record high of 62.7%. Women got 2/3 of all the full-time jobs created in the past 12 months, and almost 233,000 women have entered the workforce since last May. We've also seen the gender pay gap drop to the lowest on record at 13.3%. These outcomes are promising and demonstrate that when you take women's economic equality seriously, you will see the results. And that's what we've done. From coming to government through our Jobs and Skills Summit, we have recognised that gender equality is a core economic imperative, and we've continued this focus in all the work we've done, including improved transparency in gender pay gap reporting, putting gender equality at the heart of our workplace relations system, and investments in free
Minister. The time
TAFE.
has expired. Senator Pratt, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. That's a great start. So, as we know, there is still a great deal of work to do to protect the gains that are being made and to make further progress towards gender equality in Australia. Therefore, I ask, can the Minister update the Senate on what is on the government's agenda going forward to make life better for women in our nation?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Pratt for the supplementary. While we have made these historic investments, it is a start. We know that there is more to do, and we need to protect the gains that we've made, and we won't be deterred from this. One of the ways we're doing this is through the development of a national strategy to achieve gender equality, which we expect to release later this year. Earlier this year, we held a public consultation process seeking the views of the whole community on gender equality and how we can support women across the country. We've already heard from over 3,000 individuals and organisations throughout our consultation process, and I would like to thank women around the country for their contributions so far, through the Jobs and Skills Summit, through the consultations across key government processes on the national strategy, through their conversations and roundtables with me. Women are sharing their experience and their expertise, and it's been an honour to listen to so many of them share their time, reflections with me. Will continue to listen, invest and make changes that improve their lives.
Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for Financial Services, Senator Gallagher. Noting that legislation to enact the Small Business Technology Investment Boost measure from the May 2022 budget passed through the other place in November last year and was introduced in this place last December, and given this measure is due to expire in just 2 weeks, when does the government intend to progress legislation to enact this measure in the budget?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I think thank you, Senator Pocock, for the question. I think I'm trying to recall the bill that it's in. I think it came, and it might not have had the support of this place to get through, as I understand. If that's wrong, I will check the record. But as you know, from the discussions that we've had from time to time, because we don't have majority in this chamber, we are often dependent on negotiations across the chamber around these things. But I'm not sure I can assist very more. I'll see if there's anything further people can advise me with while I keep talking and looking around anxiously. But I believe that that's the case. If there is something further, I will come back to you on that.
Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister. On the broader issue of having a measure to drive productivity in small business that is due to expire in 2 weeks that hasn't been passed, does the government accept that it is very unlikely that many small businesses will be able to actually utilise this measure?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I have been assisted, and I was correct. It was a measure that was contained in TLAB 4, which is due to come to the Senate next week. So, I mean, if we have the support of the chamber, I think, and it passes next week, we will be able to see that continue or commence. And there are a whole range of other measures, as you know, that we are working on through Minister Collins to support small business through the budget that we have just released as well. So we understand our role to support small business and work with them on those areas that they want, and we've done that in this budget with some of those investment measures, improving cash flow, reducing compliance costs for small business, the $20,000 instant asset write-off, all of those are targeted to small business, the small
Thank you,
business
Minister. The
energy
time for answering has
incentive.
expired. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Minister. Given small business is the backbone of our economy and there is a technology boost that will hopefully maybe be available for just 1 week, will the government consider extending the period of time to which this technology boost is available to small businesses?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Well, we're always working with small business on the best ways to provide support to them. So I will defer that your question to the Minister for Small Business, but I would also say some of the issues that small business have raised with us are reflected in the budget around the energy incentive, around the instant asset write-off, around the TAFE, extra investments in skills for labour, around the entire energy transition, which has huge opportunities for small business, and indeed through our cyber security wardens program, which was also a priority for small business. So happy to take that part of your question on notice, but we were always prepared to look at ideas to support small business as a big driver across our economy.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Nampijinga-Price.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. Minister, the Yiperinya School student accommodation proposal is a local-led initiative to improve the lives of young Australians in Alice Springs, yet it continues to get knocked back by this government. Can the Minister confirm the government supports a Canberra-led solution rather than a local-led solution to the issues facing Central Australia?
Thank you, Senator Nampijinga-Price. Minister Gallagher.
No. The answer is we don't support a Canberra-based solution. I'm not across the particular project that the Senator refers to, but I can confirm that of the package of supports that was contained in the budget for Central Australia and Alice Springs, there is a part of that funding that is unallocated because, but provision has been made because we want to co-design programs and consult about where those investments should be made with local communities. So that is part of the work that Minister Burney, Minister McCarthy and others have been doing, is working with local communities about programs and how we make sure they're tailored to local need. I'm not, as I said, I'm not aware of the particular program you raise, Senator, but I'm happy to have a look at any further information I can provide about that.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Nampijinga-Price, first supplementary.
Thank you. That's a pity, given I have spoken about this issue and asked questions in this chamber. The Coalition supported this proposal in its final budget, and as a result of the Labor government's delay in engaging with it, the cost of the project has skyrocketed. Will the Labor government honour the commitment given to the families of Alice Springs by the previous government?
Thank you, Senator Nampijinga-Price. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank the Senator for the question. And I understand that in the last few weeks, the Minister for Education has met with Dr Morris and a group of principals from across Alice and Central Australia. And I also know that the Minister for Indigenous Australia has also visited the community-controlled independent school during a recent trip. I understand that the NIAA have received a proposal from the school to construct a residential accommodation for students and staff, and that the proposal is currently under consideration. And I would repeat that we are committed to working with all stakeholders and local communities about how we improve educational outcomes across the region. It is not about imposing a view from Canberra, but working locally for local solutions.
Senator Nampijinga-Price, second supplementary.
Thank you. And understanding this project has been shovel-ready for some time and is about protecting vulnerable children from things like sexual abuse, given that their school is probably the only safe place in the community, given this chamber considers the safety of at least women in this place. They should be considering these kids. So if the government won't support the Yipirinya community-led proposal, what must the people of Alice Springs do to get the support that they need?
Thank you, Senator Nambajika-Price. Minister Gallagher.
Well, I would say that that the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, supported by Minister McCarthy and others, have been working very hard with local communities about what is needed in Central Australia and the Alice, and will continue to do so. We understand that and have made provision for extra investments into the area, into that region. Some of that's been allocated with agreement, some of it hasn't been because the work still needs to be done. And I understand the project that the Senator refers to, as I said in my previous answer, is under consideration by the National Indigenous Australians Agency, going through their process as any other project would.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Communications, Senator Watt. Yesterday we saw the shocking decision that over 100 jobs will be cut from the ABC. I want to express my support for all the staff and their families who got this pretty shocking news yesterday. Not only will talented staff lose their jobs, but taxpayers will lose important news and public interest journalism. There will be cuts to local TV news bulletins on Sundays right across states and territories. There will be cuts to the arts and culture reporting. There's even the cutting of the political editor here in Parliament House. A cut to the ABC is a cut to the Australian people and their right to news. In an age of Murdoch media misinformation, why won't the Labor government work with the Greens and commit to fully funding the ABC and reversing all of those coalition-era cuts?
Thank you, Senator. Order. 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 Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. I think, like everyone, at least on this side of the chamber, I am a very strong supporter of the ABC, and I should actually disclose that I am the patron of the Friends of the ABC in Queensland. So I've got a very personal interest in supporting that as well. And I catch up with them at least once a year to declare my support. And I might say that the thing that over the last 2 or 3 years that the Queensland branch of the Friends of the ABC used to enjoy most when I went to their AGMs was me making sure they knew that the Albanese government was going to reverse the funding cuts of the former coalition government to the ABC. But Senator Hanson, which we did.
Order.
But Senator Hanson-Young, this is obviously a very difficult time for any individual whose role may be impacted by the changes that were announced yesterday. The fact is, though, that the ABC does have operational independence, and it is a matter for ABC management to determine how to structure the organisation within their funding envelope to meet the changing needs of audiences. The ABC, like many media organisations, faces significant challenges in today's media environment, with new technologies changing how their work is conducted while still delivering on their legislated obligations. The Minister, Minister Rowland, has requested a briefing from the ABC management in regards to the ABC 5-year plan and the announcement that was made this week. Over the ABC's 5-year funding term under the Albanese government, the ABC will receive $6 billion in funding. The ABC remains accountable to the Parliament for its use of taxpayer funds through a range of accountability mechanisms, including annual reports, corporate plans, financial and performance audits and appearances before parliamentary committees. I think all of us have an interest, or at least half of the room has an interest, in a strong ABC, and we continue to support it, and that's exactly why we took the budgetary decisions we did.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson-Young, first supplementary.
Thank you. The ABC is consistently rated the most trusted news organisation in the country. Yesterday's cuts to the ABC include local news bulletins, 7:30, Australian Story, Four Corners and the investigations teams. This will weaken public interest journalism. Minister, you've just said that the government would reverse those cuts, but you haven't, have you?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. The Albanese government did deliver on its commitment to reverse the coalition's cuts to funding, and I invite you to have a look at the budget papers, which make that very clear. In fact, I suspect that this issue was probably traversed, including by you, at Senate Estimates committees, where it has been made very clear that the Albanese government has reversed the coalition-era cuts that did really impact on the ABC, and we wanted to see that restored. But what was obviously announced yesterday was a decision of ABC management to restructure its operations, to move resources from one area to the other, to keep pace with changes in the media environment and audience needs and expectations. But as I say, Minister Rowland has requested a briefing from ABC management in regards to the ABC 5-year plan and the announcement this week. Now, there's a lot of people piping up from over that little section over there who like to say they support the ABC. I wonder why they supported all those budget cuts to the ABC when they were in government.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Hanson-Young, second supplementary.
Thank you. For the record, the government has not reversed all of the cuts, and they should. The ABC Charter requires the ABC to, quote, encourage and promote the musical, dramatic and other performing arts in Australia. Yesterday's decision includes cuts to the arts and culture reporting. What will the government do to ensure the ABC is in full obligation of its charter?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Young. You're right, Senator Hanson-Young. The ABC does play a very important role in the cultural life and promotion of the arts within this country. And I would certainly hope that following the changes that have been made by ABC management, that continues to be a strong focus of the ABC. Obviously, they have made some decisions about how resources will be allocated, what units will be established, what units will be changed, and those decisions were made by ABC management. But I would expect, and I'm sure Minister Rowland would expect, that the ABC management would continue to uphold its obligations under the ABC Charter. But the fact is that the Albanese government has delivered on our commitment to restore the cuts, many of the cuts that were made by the coalition government. Those cuts did damage the ABC. We were very proud to commit to the restoration of that funding. That's exactly what's been delivered, and we continue to support a very strong ABC going forward.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bilyk. Senator Bilyk.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Housing and the Minister for Homelessness, Senator Farrell. The Albanese government understands safe and affordable housing is central to the security and dignity of all Australians who deserve the stability that having a safe, affordable place to call home provides. These are real people facing the extraordinary stress of not having a safe roof over their heads. Can the Minister explain how the Albanese government is addressing housing challenges for Australians through its ambitious housing reform agenda, and specifically what that means for people who don't yet own a home? How do these actions respond to the challenges left by the previous government?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President. And can I thank Senator Bilyk for her very insightful question, and I can have some answers to those issues that you have raised. A decade of inaction by the former Liberal National Government left us with significant housing challenges right across the country. But the Albanese government has hit the ground running on housing, delivering immediate action along with an ambitious reform agenda. That is why the budget delivered new action to help Australian renters, expand opportunities for home ownership and bolster frontline homelessness services. The budget will help more Australians into home ownership through a significant expansion of eligibility criteria for the Home Guarantee Scheme. Under these changes, friends, siblings and other family members will be eligible for joint applications under the First Home Guarantee and the Regional First Home Buyer Guarantee. These guarantees will also be expanded for non-first home buyers who haven't owned a property in Australia in the last 10 years. These new commitments build on the actions that we have already taken, up to $575 million unlocked from the National Housing Infrastructure Facility, with new houses already under construction.
Senator Farrell, Minister Farrell, please resume your seat. Senator McKenzie, I did call you and you kept talking. That constant interjection is incredibly disorderly. Minister Farrell, please continue.
Thank you, President, and thank you for that protection. The Housing Accord, thousands helped into home ownership by the regional first home buyer. And of course, our $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund to deliver 30,000 new social and affordable rental homes in the fund's first 5 years. This fund has supported our national peak housing bodies as well as every state and territory housing minister, because who could possibly stand in this place and vote against more social and affordable rental homes?
Senate, order. Senator Bilyk, first supplementary.
Thank you for that eloquent answer, Minister. The Albanese government recognises that rental affordability challenges are putting significant pressure on Australians who need a safe, affordable and secure place to call home. Can the minister outline the alternative interventions proposed to affect the rental market? What has been the expert opinion on these proposals and their impact on people who rent a home?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, thank you, President, and thank Senator Bilyk for her first supplementary question. And to quote the Financial Review, researchers cited by the Greens to push for a rent freeze concluded that cities that experimented with the controversial controls experienced no improvement in affordability and ended up with, listen to this, and ended up with poorer quality housing. It's something the federal government cannot force upon the states. It's something many states have already ruled out. And it's something the expert advice says won't work. The Greens need to decide which is more important, their campaigning or the people who need homes, because the way to help people in housing stress is to vote for the Housing Australia Future Fund and new social and affordable rentals. It would help. The delays have to stop. Australians in need can't afford it anymore.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Bilyk, second supplementary.
Thank you for explaining that to those who need to know. Can the minister respond to the alternative interventions proposed to affect the rental market? How is the Albanese Labor government taking action to support Australians who rent their home? How is the Albanese Labor government working with states and territories to support renters?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you for your second question. The long-term answer to rental stress is sustained boost to the supply of homes to rent and a substantial investment in new social and affordable houses. And that is exactly what the Albanese government is doing. The National Housing and Homelessness Ministerial Council has been tasked with developing a proposal to National Cabinet on options to strengthen renters' rights. The Albanese government is delivering the first substantial increase in Commonwealth rent assistance in over 30 years. We're also improving taxation arrangements for investment on build-to-rent homes. And if the Greens will just get out of the way, the Housing Australia Future Fund will be the largest boost to social and affordable rental homes in a decade.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dean Smith. Order.
Thank you.
Order.
Thank you,
Senator
President.
Smith, please start again.
My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. The Prime Minister was quoted in the Australian newspaper of the 2nd of May last year saying Labor has real, lasting plans for cheaper mortgages. How does the Prime Minister reconcile his statement with the fact that interest rates are up 400 basis points since May last year, adding $15,168 to annual loan costs?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Smith for the question, and I think the lack of acknowledgement of the inflationary environment that we are in at the moment. We came to government after the first interest rate rise in May last year, and they have continued since with one pause. And the Reserve Bank is doing what it needs to do to put downward pressure on inflation and return it to target range. The job the government's got to do, and some of it goes to the answer my colleague just gave on housing, is to generate supply in housing to ease cost of living pressures for households as we tackle some of these challenges in our economy, and that's why our budget, as one of its main focus, had a cost of living package as part of it. We also had significant investments in Medicare and the care economy, in inclusion and equality, in growth opportunities to deal with the productivity challenge across the economy, and also sought to improve our budget and put it on a more sustainable footing. But we are facing difficult economic times. These are not challenges just that Australia is facing, but they are being faced around the world. We have an illegal war in Ukraine that is having an impact on the global economy. It's flowing into Australia. The bank needs to do what it needs to do, and that is, through monetary policy, control inflation, because if they weren't doing that, the impacts on everyone across the community, but particularly those on low incomes, would be much, much, much worse. And so our job is to work hand in hand with the work that the bank is doing and look at how the budget can support households as we work through these difficult times.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Smith, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. How does the Prime Minister reconcile Labor's promise for real and lasting plans for cheaper mortgages with the RBA's statement of monetary policy released last month, which projects scheduled mortgage repayments will reach around 9.6% of household disposable income by the end of this year and around 9.9% by the end of 2024, meaning that scheduled mortgage repayments as a percentage of disposable income will be at their highest since...
Senator Smith, when I call you to order, I expect you to sit down. Your question needed to be slightly shorter. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. And I would say I thank Senator Smith for the question, and I do acknowledge that these interest rate increases are hitting households, mortgage households, really hard. They really are, and the government has acknowledged that. I would also say that the Prime Minister's comments, which Senator Smith refers to, were made in relation to one of our housing policies that we took to the last election, and everything we are doing at the moment through our budget, through the investments we're making, through the works with states and territories that we're doing, is all about how we support Australians through the next 18 months or so, which is, as our budget shows, is forecast to be some challenging times. But our focus is on cost of living and supporting households without adding to inflation.
Has expired. Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Thank you very much. Given Australian households have now experienced 11 interest rate rises since the election of the Albanese government, will the Prime Minister deliver on his promise of plans for cheaper mortgages by committing to reduce inflation so that there will be no further rate rises before the next election?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister.
Well, as Senator Smith knows, with that question, the government does not control interest rates. They are decisions made by the Independent Reserve Bank, and the recent review of the Reserve Bank actually recommended strengthening that independence. So we are working with the opposition over that legislation. So I think to suggest that the government can control that is silly and is not the way the system works. What I would say is the government has a role to ensure that the decisions we make do not add to inflation, and that is the focus of our budget. That has been confirmed by the Governor of the Reserve Bank. It's been confirmed by the Secretary of the Treasury Department, and in fact, in our energy measures, which you voted against, have downward pressure on inflation. So that is the focus of this government. It's our focus that we will continue, and it has our focus on the Australian people.
Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. We know that people on low and modest wages have the least capacity to deal with the rising cost of living. And with that in mind, can you step us through how wage increases are assisting Australians with cost of living challenges, and also how the Albanese government is standing up for workers and getting their wages moving again? As a member of the Cost of Living Select Committee, we've seen a lot of people come through that committee commending a lot of the excellent things that the Albanese government has done in the last 12 months and raising some excellent suggestions for other things that we might do. So I wonder if you could step us through that.
Order. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Grogan, and thank you again for that terrific work that you and your colleagues are doing on the Cost of Living Committee. Well, as Senator Wong said earlier today, it was very pleasing to see the new jobs figures yesterday that showed that more than 465,000 jobs have been created since the Albanese government was elected just over 12 months ago, and a whopping 385,000, or 83% of them, have been full-time jobs. What's also pleasing is that more jobs are getting decent pay increases, with 60% of all jobs recording a higher wage than the year before. It's the fastest annual wage growth we've seen in Australia for over a decade, since September 2012. In fact, our softest quarter for wages growth is equal to the former coalition government's strongest quarter. Our worst was their best. The system had been sitting neglected with entrenched inequality for 10 years under the coalition government, a government who openly admitted that low wage growth was a deliberate design feature of their economic architecture. There is nothing complicated about it. Our government will always stand up for workers and protect their pay. But unfortunately, not everyone agrees with this approach. Who can forget Senator Cash as the Shadow Industrial Relations Minister warning us all that the Secure Jobs Better Pay legislation would take us back to the Dark Ages? Now, I had another look at the Dark Ages. What was the Dark Ages all about? And I'm not surprised that those opposite have an affinity for the Dark Ages.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Order. Order across the chamber. Senator Wong and Senator Cash. That's disorder. Order. It's still noisy and it's disorderly. Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you, President. As I say, I'm not surprised those opposite have an affinity for the Dark Ages, because it does remind me of a period not too long ago when they were in government. The Dark Ages were defined by a collapse in trade. Sound familiar? There was also a decline in culture and science. Well, we know that definitely happened under their government. The Dark Ages had people thinking the earth was flat. Hello, Senator Rennick. How are you going this afternoon? And of course, a preference...
Minister Watt. Order. Order. I've got a senator on his feet. Senator Ayres. Order. Senator Whish-Wilson. Order. Senators, this is disrespectful. Senator Rennick is on his feet. Senator Rennick.
Point of order, please, Chair. Could I ask that Minister Watt withdraw that comment, as it's a personal reflection?
I think it's close to one, but I'll ask Senator... Minister Watt. Minister Watt. I'm just about to rule Senator Brockman. Senator Brockman, please resume your seat. Minister Watt, I would ask you to withdraw. Thank you.
I withdraw. And of course, the Dark Ages also had a preference for autocratic rule where a king held all the power. I think we remember a time like that not too recently as well.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
I'll refrain from making any further comment other than that was a spectacular answer, Minister Watt. Thank you very much. Under the previous Liberal and National government, the bargaining system had become too rigid and legalistic, leading to a decrease in agreement making. Since passing the Secure Jobs Better Pay Act in December last year, how has the Albanese government delivered on its commitment to invigorate enterprise bargaining?
Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Senator Grogan. Well, workers covered by enterprise agreements benefit from better pay and conditions, and employers with enterprise bargaining benefit from better productivity and conditions which properly reflect the specific needs of their enterprise. Our government, of course, inherited an enterprise bargaining system that was on life support, and our Secure Jobs Better Pay reforms have brought employers and workers back to the bargaining table. Many employers who have not even been at the bargaining table for many years, including some of the big banks. We've also made enterprise bargaining accessible to those who've been locked out from its benefits, critical sectors like early childhood, education and aged care. And again, the Shadow Industrial Relations Minister, Senator Cash, at the time said, "There is nothing in this bill that is going to assist in rising wages." Yet again, Senator Cash gets it wrong, as she so often does. Well, Senator Cash and the Coalition, I'm proud to say that Australian workers will now get a 5.7% pay increase at the lowest level, with the Fair Work Commission acknowledged the importance of this legislation.
Thank you, Senator Watt. The time for answering has expired. I'm not going to call Senator Grogan until there's quiet. Thank you. And Senator Watt, I would ask you to refrain from putting any other things in your answers apart from words. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
We know that even when there are strong bargaining outcomes, some employers still use labour hire to undercut pay and conditions of their workers. What is the Albanese government doing to close the loopholes that some employers use to undercut employees' pay and entitlements?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Grogan, and thank you, President, for the reference to the standing orders on sound effects. I very appreciate that advice. We understand the importance of getting wages moving, particularly in undervalued, traditionally feminised industries like early childhood education and care. And those opposite, including, it would appear, Senator Cash, made absurd claims that these reforms would close down Australia. As I said, it looks pretty open to me here in Australia, despite all of those warnings that we were getting. Properly valuing and recognising the profession is crucial to attracting and retaining a high-quality workforce, and our children and ageing Australians deserve to be cared for and educated by a properly valued workforce. The best way to do this is by making bargaining more accessible to these workers, and the supported bargaining stream of the government's Secure Jobs Better Pay Act will allow for these undervalued sectors to use the Fair Work Commission's functions and be supported to negotiate enterprise agreements, including bringing the funder to the bargaining table at the appropriate time. Under the Albanese government, wages are moving again.
The time for answering has expired. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.